Today, we're diving into one of the most powerful short stories you'll ever encounter, the Book of Ruth. It's a story that really asks a huge question. When you're faced with just devastating loss, can unshakable loyalty actually lead to redemption? Well, we're about to see how the answer to that question literally changes the course of history.
So here's how we're going to walk through this. We'll start with a family's absolute tragic collapse. Then, we'll see a tiny glimmer of hope pop up in a harvest field, which leads to a really daring plan at a place called a threshing floor. It all comes to a head in this legal drama at the city gate that doesn't just save a family, it actually sets the stage for royalty.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Our story kicks off in a pretty dark time. A famine has taken over the land of Bethlehem, and it forces a family, a man named Elimelech, his wife Naomi, and their 2 sons, to pack up and look for a safe haven in the neighboring country of Moab. But moving doesn't always solve your problems. Tragedy follows them. First, Naomi's husband dies. Then, about 10 years later, both of her sons die too. Just like that, Naomi is left a widow, in a foreign land with her 2 foreign daughters-in-law. She is completely crushed, saying that she went away full but has been brought back totally empty. So Naomi, feeling like she has nothing left to offer, tells her daughters-in-law to go back to their own families. One of them, Orpah, tearfully agrees. But Ruth refuses, and her pledge here is just staggering. Think about it. She's a Moabite woman, and she is turning her back on her country, her culture, her gods, everything she's ever known, to cling to her mother-in-law. This is a radical, life-changing commitment.
Right in the middle of all this heartache, Ruth's choice is the very first ray of light. This isn't just loyalty when it's easy. This is a bond that's been forged in shared pain. Her decision becomes the shining example of her character, and really the first sign of hope for Naomi.
All right, so with that incredible vow made, these 2 women start the long journey back to Bethlehem. They show up with absolutely nothing right at the beginning of the barley harvest. And Ruth, well, she understands immediately that if they're going to survive, it's up to her.
To make ends meet, Ruth relies on this ancient custom called gleaning. Now, it's really important to get what this was. This wasn't just begging or a handout. It was actually a right written into Israelite law for the poor and for foreigners. You could think of it like a divinely approved welfare system, one that allowed people to work for their food with dignity.
And this is where the whole story takes a turn. The field Ruth just happens to wander into belongs to a wealthy and well-respected man named Boaz. When he finds out who she is and hears about her incredible loyalty to Naomi, he's blown away. He doesn't just offer her his protection, he actually tells his workers to secretly leave extra grain behind for her to find.
So, this brings up a huge theme in the book. You have to ask yourself, was this just a lucky break, a happy accident, or is there something more going on behind the scenes here? The story really wants us to see that maybe an unseen hand is guiding these events, weaving together what looks like pure chance into a beautiful pattern.
This is such a perfect picture of what we call divine providence. See, God's plan isn't always some big, dramatic, flashy miracle. So often, it's woven through the quiet faithfulness of everyday people like Ruth and the simple kindness of people like Boaz. Her decision to just go to work has swung open a door to blessings she couldn't have even imagined.
So, when Naomi finds out that Ruth has been working in Boaz's field and that he's a close relative, you can almost see the gears start turning in her head. That flicker of hope is rekindled, and she switches from just passively grieving to coming up with a really bold and, for their culture, a very risky plan.
Now, Naomi's instructions are really specific, and they probably sound a little strange to us. In their culture, this act of going in at night, uncovering a man's feet, and lying there, it was a dramatic and incredibly vulnerable move. It was a silent but really powerful way for Ruth to place herself under his protection and basically ask him to step up and do his duty to the family. And Ruth, she follows the plan perfectly. When Boaz wakes up startled, she speaks these incredibly courageous words. When she asks him to spread his garment over her, she's directly asking for the protection of marriage, and she even uses the specific term, calling him a kinsman redeemer. This moment right here shows us that faith isn't just a passive thing. It's not about just waiting around. Sometimes faith means acting with courage, based on wise advice. Ruth's bold, vulnerable step is exactly what puts her in the position to receive the security and the redemption that she and Naomi need so badly. Boaz is just completely moved by Ruth's character, and he agrees to help her. So the very next morning, he goes down to the city gate, which was kind of like the ancient version of a courthouse and a town hall all rolled into one, to settle the whole thing publicly and legally. Okay, so the whole climax of this story hangs on this really important role of the kinsman redeemer, or goel in Hebrew. This was a vital social duty. A male relative was responsible for making sure a family's land and their name didn't just disappear when a man died. It was all about restoration. Now, Boaz knows there's a catch. There's another relative who's actually closer in line to redeem than he is. So he presents the case to this other guy who's all for buying the land at first, but when he finds out the deal includes marrying Ruth, the Moabitess, he backs out. He's afraid it'll mess up his own estate. Boaz, on the other hand, sees the person, not just the property.
So to make the whole thing official, they perform this really unique custom. To finalize the deal, the other kinsman takes off his sandal and hands it to Boaz. This was like a public, binding signature, confirming in front of all the town elders that the right of redemption was now his.
Boaz's actions here really get to the very heart of redemption. It's selfless. While the other guy only saw a financial risk, Boaz saw a human being in need. He willingly chose the honorable and more expensive path, restoring not just a piece of land, but the future of an entire family.
And with that public declaration, the story just rushes towards this incredible, triumphant finish. But the impact of this one act of redemption, well, it goes far beyond what anyone standing at that gate could have possibly guessed. Boaz marries Ruth, and soon they have a son named Obed. And think about this for a second. This is such a beautiful reversal. Naomi, the woman who came back feeling so empty she asked people to call her bitter, is now completely full of joy. The whole community celebrates with her, calling this baby the one who will restore her life. And then, just when you think the story is over, the book's final verses drop an absolute bombshell. This little baby, Obed, he would grow up to become the father of a man named Jesse, and Jesse would become the father of David, Israel's greatest king. The loyal Moabite woman, the outsider, becomes the great-grandmother of royalty. And it leaves us with this powerful thought, doesn't it? Ruth's whole journey started with a simple choice to be loyal when everything was falling apart. Boaz's part began with a simple choice to be kind to a foreigner in his field. Neither of them could have possibly known that their small actions would echo down through history. It just makes you wonder, what kind of legacy are our own small, everyday acts of faithfulness building right now?